This video is to show you the answer to the Got It number 2 on lesson 6.4, solving systems of equations using substitution. Okay, remember the whole point of solving a system of equations is to figure out the value of the variables in the system. And in this case, we have two types of variables. We have y's and we have x's. So we need to get the value of the x and the y. All right, it's going to be the point of intersection. Okay, so we have y equals 2x and then 4x plus 5y equals negative 14. Well, in this case, we have y is already isolated. It's y equals 2x, so y is almost solved for. Since y is isolated, meaning it's by itself, and we know that it equals 2x, then we can plug in y down here. We could plug in 2x for y in our second equation, because we only want to solve for one variable at a time. So let's recopy the second equation. 4x plus 5y equals negative 14. And then we're going to plug in 2x where we see a y, because y equals 2x. So we could substitute, right? Substitute that in. So it's going to be 4x plus 5 times y, which in this case we know y is 2x, so let's plug in 2x. And then it equals negative 14. Okay, let's further solve. 4x plus, well, 5 times 2x would be 5 times 2 is 10, so it's 10x equals negative 14. All right, here we have two x terms. Since they both have an x, we can combine them. If we have 4x's and 10x's, it's going to be 14x's. So it's 14x equals negative 14. One-step equation to solve for x, we have to get rid of the 14. Since 14 is being multiplied by x, to get rid of it, the inverse operation is to divide it. Divide both sides. The 14s cancel out over here, and you're just left with x equals negative 14 divided by 14 is negative 1. So we just figured out that x equals negative 1. But we're not finished yet, because we found out what x equals, but we don't know what y equals yet. But if we go back up to the first equation up here, we know that y, the first equation in the system, we know that y equals 2 times x. So think about, how can I figure out what y equals if we know that it's 2 times x? Well, if you're thinking to yourself, well, I know that x equals negative 1, so I could plug it back in, then you are correct. So let's recopy the first equation, y equals 2x. And we just figured out that x equals negative 1, so let's plug in negative 1 right here to get our value for x. Y equals 2 times negative 1. Right, because x is negative 1. So y equals negative, or I'm sorry, y equals 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Okay, so our final answer, if we were to put it in an ordered pair, x comma y, our x value is negative 1 and our y value is negative 2. Okay, so that's our final answer. This is our solution. If you were to graph these two equations, The point of intersection would be at the point -1, -2.